I've photographed over 5,000 houses and I've learned a few things when it comes to the real estate industry. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to do to get started and the pitfalls to look out for. So I'm going to share with you 24 things I've learned, and the last couple might just surprise you, so stick around. G'day friends, when I started out it was a bit of a slog to get going, but all you have to do to make headway in this industry is just to keep at it. Before we get into the video, I am aware that there is a scab on my head and it's an injury, not some kind of tumour.
It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor at all.
As I don't have any hair to cushion my head, I hit it on things all the time. If you can sympathise me as a bald man, let me know in the comments. Now this video isn't going to be an overly edited video, it's more of a talk between you and me. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. Alright, let's get to number one. Every single real estate agency already has a photographer. So how do you get work? The real estate industry is demanding and fast moving, and how this helps you is because agents are always looking for additional photographers. Sometimes it's because of workload, and sometimes it's because some of them like to have a photographer dedicated to just them. Best ways I found to get into these companies was to contact them, letting them know that you're happy to be their backup photographer or shoot some rentals as a trial. I walked into multiple agencies as well when I started out and left price lists. And I also use Facebook a lot, as most agencies in Melbourne have a Facebook page. I still have 3 of those customers to this day. One I got from walking in and the other 2 I got from Facebook. So just don't give up. I often do a few photo shoots or videos or drone for free to show them what you can do. You don't know what their circumstances are. They could just be about to get rid of their existing photographer. I got into one company because their current photographer alienated their top salesperson. She no longer wanted to work with that photographer, so I just worked for her. After a while, one of the other agents started to use me, and then eventually I became the only photographer they used, and I still am nearly 10 years later. I never talked badly about the other photographer and never even met him. All I did was be easy to deal with and do a good job in a fast time frame. It will take 2 years to get fully going. When I started an IT business many years ago, it took almost 2 years to the day to be earning enough money to be comfortable. My real estate photography business was no different. Just focus on getting 3 agencies on your books and you'll be fine from there. Real estate agents move around a lot and everybody knows everybody in this industry. So if you make the agents happy, when they move to another company, they'll most likely take you with them, which will probably lead to a new whole customer for you as well. Which brings me to the next point. You will hear so much inside gossip about different companies and other agents. Never repeat any of it. Never talk bad about any agents at all. They all know each other. Keep that in mind. I'm just waiting for this hedge trimmer next door to stop running. It's so loud. Any other day they could be doing it, but today. Target smaller agencies when you're starting out to get experience, then work up to branded agencies. I swear to God, they're going to hedge trim this building. They're actually getting closer. I didn't think they could, but it sounds like they're in here. This room was soundproof, would you believe? See, it's not all glamour. Sometimes this happens. Smaller boutique agencies don't have the overheads and pressures from huge amounts of listings, and this means that you have more time on the job to learn your craft and build good relationships with the agents, as you can offer a more personalised service. You don't need a lot of gear to get started. All this gear I've accumulated over time. I didn't buy all this up front, I actually accumulated this over time. All you really need is a tripod, one flash, and a camera with a wide-angle lens. The wide-angle lens has to be at least 16mm wide to do real estate. It doesn't matter what brand of camera you use, as long as it does at least 3 bracketed images, that's all you need to get started. When I started out, I used this clipboard and this laser measure for years, but now you can just use your phone with an app that I use called Cubicasa. You just walk around and scan with your phone and it does all the hard work for you. You then send the scan off and it gets drawn up by Cubicasa without any skills from you. I'll put a link in the description for you if it's something you're interested in. Start by offering just photos. Then as you get more skilled, you can offer floor plans, then video, then virtual staging, then drones and so on. This also means you can get more gear as you go as well, so you don't have to spend all that money to start off. But over time, the more services you offer, the more money that will come to you. And the agents are going to book these services anyway. You may as well have them booking them with you. You want them to be your go-to guy or gal. You will never be greeted by a lonely widow who wants a fling. Well, not if you look like this. Maybe if you look like this. It's never actually happened to me, which is great because I'm happily married anyway. Number 10, you will get ripped off at some point. Now when I say ripped off, I don't mean by the owners of the houses, although I do have a story like that later in the video. I mean you will get some agencies who won't pay you. They'll get you to do the work, then drag out paying you or not pay you at all. So make sure you have a... Here they go again. Man, I thought they were finished. We'll get through this, I promise. So make sure you have a good collection agency on your books. Now we're getting into the meat of things. Tenants are usually horrible people to deal with. If you're a tenant watching this, I don't mean you, I mean all the other tenants. And tenants' houses are usually very messy and hard to photograph. Most of the time the blinds or the curtains are broken, the lighting doesn't work, and the houses are very messy. And I do understand why though, because tenants have been told to clean the place up by the agents before I get there, and there is nothing in it for the tenant. If the place gets sold, they'll probably be told to vacate. So they generally don't go to any effort to clean up the house before you get there. And they're very particular about their possessions. I had one guy who stood in every photo with his arms out like Jesus in front of all his stuff because he didn't want photos of his possessions on the internet. Houses are sometimes very messy, but the houses that are really messy are not the problem, because when it's too much to move, you just don't move anything. The problem houses are the ones that are a little untidy or full of clutter. It takes twice as long to get through the shoot because of these houses, because it's too messy to leave things in the photos, but it's not quite messy enough where you don't have to tidy it up. In Melbourne, each house has 3 of what we call wheelie bins. One for green waste, one for general rubbish, and one for recycling. These bins are full 90% of the time because owners have been cleaning up the house to get it ready. And the owners always leave them at the front of the house. They're multicolored and they look horrible in photos and usually weigh about a ton, so you have to move them all the time. If I can get away with using generative fill in Photoshop to remove them, I will, because I move bins more than any other item. Now there's a leaf blower. This video is taking 4 times longer than it should. Can you hear that? It's like someone's got it in for me today. Number 14, you will break gear. I've broken multiple flashes as I've dropped them, or they've fallen off stands and so on. I dropped my camera once and broke the front of the lens. And another time I was photographing a house in winter. The wind was blowing and I was in the backyard. The camera was on the tripod with the flip screen out. I walked across the yard to move a ball that was in the way and the wind blew the camera over. The only bonus I had was the ground was a little muddy, so it was a soft landing, but I broke the hood off the camera in the process. Some agents want you to go above and beyond the limits of any normal shoot, which would be fine if they were willing to pay you, but they're not. They ask for specific shots. They might ask you to drive 5 kilometers down the road to get a picture of a park that's sort of nearby. Then they complain when they get them and make you re-edit them, and they'll take forever to pay you. The bonus here is that most of these agents don't really last in the industry. They just want to feel important by bossing everybody around. So just hold your tongue and know that they'll move on soon enough. I've photographed a few hoarders' houses over the years. Now these are nearly impossible to photograph, as half the time you're walking through small pathways inside the house surrounded by piles and piles of junk. And usually the owner is following you around trying to pretend to clean up as you go because they're embarrassed about the mess. But in this one particular case, the house was way beyond anything I could do. I literally had half a meter of pathways, things were piled to the ceiling. And I went up to the agent and I said, hey, just quietly, I can't do this one. And his response to me was, just do the best you can, which I did. And then they complained the photos aren't any good. They then sent me around to the same property a month or 2 later, once everything was cleaned up, to do the job again. You get paid twice, but it's a complete waste of everyone's time and money. On another occasion, early on in my drone flying journey, the agent wanted some drone images of a property. It wasn't raining, but it was gale force winds. I launched the drone, but it was too windy, so I landed and said that I couldn't do the job that day. The agent begged me and said he only wanted 1 shot top down of the property. So against my better judgment, I launched the drone again and it just blew away. Even at full throttle against the wind, it was just getting blown away. So I had to come down low right on top of the rooftops, which was quite risky, and managed to bring it home. The agent saw this whole scenario unfold, and once I landed, it said, "Did you manage to get the shot?" That day was a great lesson for me to never be pressured into doing something that is against my better judgment ever again. Speaking of drones for real estate, this video is sponsored by me. If you're planning on using a drone for real estate photography and you need help with the photo editing, I've created a template for you to use that will save you so much time when editing, and it's 100% free for you. If you want multiple templates, I've got you covered there as well, as I've created 11 different ones for you and added a few Lightroom presets and a Photoshop brush in there as well. All links are in the description. I photographed this old beaten up house a few years ago, and when I got there, there were 3 or 4 big guys drinking heavily and generally being rowdy, which I usually don't have a problem with, but when I'm there to work, it's kind of uncomfortable. One of the guys asked me if I wanted a beer. I politely said no because I was working, and he got aggressive because he said I was too good for him to have a beer with. So then he started kicking chairs around and swearing, but he left me alone as the other guys moved him away. About 10 minutes later, I heard a voice right behind me asking me how much my camera was worth. And when I turned around, the 3 guys were just standing there. I told the guy it's an old camera and I was about to upgrade anyway, so it's not worth much, probably a couple $100, which wasn't true, but you know, I was trying to save my camera. He looked me dead in the eye and asked me, what if I took it from you? Now, I'm not afraid to tell you that I was pretty scared at this point. I'd like to say that I came back with some smart, amazing answer, but all I could come back with is, well, if you decide to take it from me, there isn't much I can do about it. And I was pretty sure I was going to lose all my gear at this point, but after what seemed like forever, he just says, nah, I don't want your camera, bro. And the 3 of them laugh and go back outside. So I only had a couple more shots to do, so I did them, and then I left. Which brings me to this point. 95% of the time, agents will not be at the property, so things like what I just mentioned could happen. If you're a woman doing this job, take a can of mace with you or something like that, especially as you'll be shooting at dusk a lot of the time. With real estate agents, everything must be done right now. Everything is an emergency. Just keep in mind that agents set their own schedules and deadlines, and that pressure they put on themselves flows down to you. Always do your best to accommodate them when reasonable, but remember, their deadlines are not your deadlines. Set your schedule and delivery times, let the agents know up front what they are, and then stick to them. Most agents will get used to the way you work after a while, it's just the new ones where you have the teething problems. I shot this house a year or so ago and the agent wasn't there as usual. There was a mid-30s couple that were going through a divorce, which is why the house was up for sale. She hated me from the second I walked in. She was rude, she did everything she could to make my job harder. The husband was fine, and asked if I could photograph one of the living areas at the back of the house. She told me not to photograph that area. So I had the husband on one side of me and the wife on the other, and they started to argue and they got louder and louder. When they took a breath, I said, why don't I just take it? The agent doesn't have to use it, but it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. They agreed to that, which was good. And after they had calmed down, I just started generally chatting to the wife as I was doing my job, and she started to open up a little bit more. Turns out she hated the real estate agent. She didn't want him to sell her house at all. And once I told her I ran my own business and I only contracted to the agent, that I didn't actually work for them, she was nice as she could be. Some people are just having a bad day. Now the opposite of this can happen too. I turned up at a house in the middle of the day. A young couple let me in. I told them I would be doing the floor plan first, then I'd photograph the bedrooms and bathrooms, the living areas and kitchen, and then I'd do outside. The young guy asked me how long it was going to take, and I said, oh, about an hour. So they said thanks, and they left me to it. I was halfway done doing the floor plan on my trusty keyboard here when I started to hear noises from the main bedroom. And they were not interested in being quiet in any way, shape or form. They had decided to go off and get off. I couldn't keep doing the floor plan because I was right near the bedroom door, so I decided now was a good time to go outside and do the outside photos. When I came back in, they were watching TV and I never said a word. Last year I was alone in an old single-story house that was built in the 50s. It was empty, so I did the floor plan first, and when I got to this one bedroom, it was ice cold. Now it was winter, so I assumed there was a draft or something, but I felt really weird. I'm actually getting goosebumps telling you about it right now. As I walked out of the room, the door slammed shut behind me like bang, and it scared the hell out of me. I chalked up to the wind or a draft and finished the plan. Usually I photograph the inside, then finish on the outside, and then leave. But I was a bit on edge, so I photographed the outside first and then every room in the house except that one, as I wanted to leave it until last. I opened the door and stood back and it slowly shut, just like that, and then went click. I opened it again, turned around to get my tripod, and it slammed shut again. Bang! There was no draft or wind. I went into the room and it was so cold, and I checked the window, but there was no air coming in from anywhere. So I got my tripod and I do what I usually do when I have a door that won't stay open. I rested the tripod leg against the open door so it couldn't close. As I was lining up my shot, the door started to tap against the tripod leg, just like this. Soft at first and then getting harder and harder. So I quickly took the photo, grabbed my camera and tripod and took a step back, and the door slammed shut in my face. I guess I just wasn't supposed to be in that room. I called the agent after and asked him if anything was weird about the house that he might have noticed. He did jump right in and he said, well, there is that freaky cold room. As far as he knew, nothing bad had happened in the house, so who knows? Which leads me to the next one. I did mention this in a video a while back, but I will tell it here again. A few years back, I was asked to photograph a house where a woman had been murdered in the main bedroom and then dismembered in the bath. And that's horrible. It had happened about 6 months before and the house was fully renovated, but they were having trouble selling it for obvious reasons. So the owner wanted a new real estate agent to try and sell it and provide fresh photos, which is where I came in. And it was a neat looking little house, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, not creepy in any way at all. I was there alone as usual and they wanted dusk photos, so I was there in the evening. So I photographed the bedrooms first and my imagination was running a little bit wild because I was standing where someone was brutally murdered. I then did the bathroom and there was no longer a bath, just a sink to my right and a shower to my left and a toilet in the far corner. I took the shot from the doorway, but it wasn't the best angle, so I went over to the far corner and set my tripod up for the better angle. Then I crouched down behind my tripod so my reflection wouldn't be seen in the mirror, and then I realised I was crouching in the only spot where the bath could have been. A huge shiver ran down my spine, so I got out of the bathroom and finished the job. Now you would think that if there was ever going to be a ghost in a house, that this would be the house. But apart from my own imagination, there was nothing weird about that house at all. So the question is, would I live in it? Hell no. Don't be afraid to fire your customers. This one is a tough one, but I've done it a few times. The first time I had to do it was with the first job I did for a particular real estate agency, which was some headshots for their staff. At the start, I wasn't great at headshots because I was still learning, so I used to use a woman who was fantastic at it. I sent her to do the job and she sent me the proofs after, and these headshots were world class. I was really impressed. I sent the proofs to the customer, which is basically a low-res image with the word proof across it so they couldn't steal it or use it without paying. And I asked her to choose which one she liked and come back to us, and we would do final touch-ups and send through the high-res images for her. The woman in charge hated all the images, every single one of them, but also demanded we send through all the high-res images. When I said no, she then asked me to change the background on all the images. We'd sent through about 60 proofs, and they had a nice greenery background because they were shot outside in a spot that the customer had requested to shoot them. I asked her again to pick the one she liked, and I would change the background on those. She said all of them again, and then demanded again that I send through all high-res images, or I'll have to reshoot them all again. And it was at this point that I thought, nah, I'm not working for her anymore. So I sent her an email saying that I was very grateful for the opportunity to work with her company. I just don't think the way they do things versus the way we do things is a good fit. I stated there will be no charge for the photo shoot, and I wish them all the best in finding a photographer that suits them better. She responded with one line: please send through high-res images ASAP. I ignored her and haven't heard from her since. I just knew that if this first job was going to be so difficult, then every job after that would have been. And sometimes it's best just to cut your losses and leave the problem customers to somebody else. But what if you had a customer for a while and they're painful to deal with and they take forever to pay and you want to get rid of them? Well, I've got a foolproof way of getting rid of them. Real estate agents hate waiting for anything. They hate waiting for trades to do the job. They hate waiting for photographers. So when they call to book a job, all you have to do is say, I'm pretty busy, but I can squeeze it in late next week. Now, when agents call, they generally want the job done over the next few days. They'll put up with it for a little while, but if you keep telling them it'll be a few weeks, they'll find another photographer very quickly. And the best part is, the worst they can ever say about you is that you were too busy. And that's a good thing. I did this with a customer a few years ago, and I got feedback from another agent at another company who had talked to him, and the feedback was, I like working with Brett, and I liked his photos, but he was just too busy, so I had to find somebody else. And it suited me just fine because I hated working with that guy. Now, none of this stuff is helpful unless you know how to price your services for real estate. So give this video here a watch, as it covers everything you need to know about what to charge for your photography. See you later.